Welcome to Graceful Healing, a podcast to get straight talk about healing and living again. My name is Maureen Lake. I'm a holistic health coach, speaker, author, and thyroid disease fighter. Each week, I'll be bringing you graceful conversations to inspire you to seek new ways to hit the reset button to catapult your health and vitality to new levels. Listen in and open your heart to all the new possibilities. Are you ready? Let's do this. I am so excited about this interview today. Michele is one of my closest friends. I've known her almost my entire life. In fact, we first met in middle school. I had just moved to the DC area from Portland, Oregon. And coming from a Catholic school where I had one teacher for every subject, and PE was recess out on the blacktop, it was literally culture shock walking into a huge public school, changing class with each subject. And I was one of those girls that carried all my books with me because I had no idea how to open a locker. But along came Michele to the rescue, and we've been friends ever since. It's interesting because our lives have paralleled each other almost every step of the way. By that, I mean we went to the same high school, and then almost simultaneously, we both had to move to different houses and attend different schools. But that didn't stop us from going to the same college together. We were in each other's weddings. We even had our children the same years. And oddly, we both ended up getting a second career in the health industry without even knowing the other person was pursuing the same career. And it wasn't even until recently that I found out that Michele had thyroid disease. Isn't that crazy? To think you can be so close to someone and not share something in intimate detail such like that. I think that's pretty typical of women, to be perfectly honest. There's only so much we want to share before you start to begin to feel like maybe you're going to be a burden to that other person. But it's one more thing we share with each other, along with our lifetime of memories. So, Michele calls herself a closet intuitive. To me, I think she's just simply amazing. She's a healer, plain and simple, and uses Reiki and Shamballa as her tools. Her passion is helping other women live a healthy, active lifestyle, just like she does today. I can't wait for you to meet her and learn how she's healed herself, how she's healed others, and how she's healed me. Hello, everybody. I can't wait for you to hear my next guest, Michele. We've been friends, since middle school?
Yeah.
That's just so crazy. And I just can't wait for everybody to meet you, Michele. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I just can't thank you enough for this opportunity to share my journey and actually for us just to get to have a conversation.
Isn't that the truth? And I think
it
was
too long.
Like last year, I found out that you had hypothyroidism right around the time I was first diagnosed. And I actually had no idea that you suffered for years.
Yeah, I know that was quite like one of those moments of all the stars lining up, because I feel like I've been on this champion, like all women need to get tested for hypothyroidism. And, I constantly hear, about people who have had that same kind of journey that I did. Mm-hmm. So I was glad you shared it.
Yeah. Somehow you forgot to let me in on it.
Yeah. Well, we were busy raising kids.
I guess so. That must have been it.
That was it. But thank you for inviting me to do this. And you're just doing such great work by sharing all these wonderful stories. I've really enjoyed listening to all the podcasts that you've done.
Oh, thank you. Well, let's hear about yours. So can you just tell us a little bit about your story, your journey, how you ended up where you are today? Because I know it all connects.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have guessed it would all come together like this, but it is funny how that happens. So several years ago, I was experiencing side effects from thyroid disease that went undiagnosed for a really long time. I can't even, find a calendar that would tell me when it started. But my doctor kept saying, oh, all the blood work is normal. I changed doctors, and the next doctor would, come up with something and just say, well, you're raising children, you're tired, you're busy, you're working, all those things. And I just leave feeling like maybe I'm a little bit crazy. And so in hindsight, I had all the symptoms of thyroid disease. I gained weight for no reason. I could barely get through the day without a nap. Fortunately, at the time, I was working part-time, so I could take a nap. But I can even remember one day coming home from a meeting, and I had to stop on the side of the road, close my eyes for a few minutes because I felt like I couldn't get home without going to sleep.
Wow.
So, it was like, that's not normal.
Right.
So I had been to a few doctors, and I really was starting to think, well, maybe I'm battling depression. My relationship with my husband was suffering. My children, I would be like, oh, I can't do this because I'm really tired. And again, the weight gain, that played into not wanting to shop for clothes. So nothing felt like it fit. It was just a downward spiral. And fortunately, I heard about a doctor who I actually knew, but he had started an anti-aging sort of side practice. And this was a number of years ago, and I didn't really know what anti-aging was going to mean, but I had heard people who were saying, oh, he's doing really wonderful work. And I went to see him, and I felt like a miracle had happened. He knew right away. He said that a lot of the blood tests that are done by a typical Western physician, which he was, they're not in depth enough to pull up, what was going on. Mm-hmm. And so he did a much deeper panel of blood work. And within days, he put me on thyroid medication and compounded hormone supplements because I don't know if it's a result of this or just a coincidence, but I was also going through pretty early menopause. I was only 43. And that took a lot of doctors by surprise too. They really didn't know what to do with that piece of things. And were just trying to give me a medication that just really wasn't working. So it was truly a miracle because within a couple of weeks, I felt like myself again. And I'd always been really active. I had, really exercise and active lifestyle had been part of my life from childhood on. So
I know. I remember you swimming laps like crazy, and my head would get tired watching you go back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah. It was so funny. Well, it was just, really, I knew that something wasn't right, but it's hard to go to a doctor and have them tell you you're fine and then, walk out with nothing. So that was really how the journey started. And I felt a lot better. I really was back to normal. And as my friends started to age, I guess I should say, and sort of catch up to where I was with menopause and things like that, this story just kept coming up like over and over about people who were like, I'm losing my hair, I'm gaining weight. And I finally, I would just be like, oh, here, you got to go see this doctor. He'll fix it. So I feel like unsolicited, I sort of became the spokesperson in my circle of friends and a network that really had been through that. And also part of that journey, I stopped seeing Western medicine doctors and started seeing naturopaths because they really seemed to understand what I was going through. And it wasn't like I was crazy and, we just got things fixed, and it was a miracle. It was truly a miracle.
Well, I bet. Did you get the pat on the head?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's like so demoralizing.
I know.
So I think the funniest story was that my daughter, Jenna, was in high school and like maybe in middle school, but I think high school. And I told her who I was going to see for an appointment, and she just casually, and she said, be sure you tell him about your mood swings. And I was like, what? Mood swings? And she said, yeah, just tell him about the mood swings. And so I thought I was doing a good job of trying to keep it together. Obviously not. So it's been quite a journey because, I feel like my old self, I'm 63, and I feel like, I should have felt in my 40s. I really do. I have energy. I most days exercise, healthy lifestyle. And so that kind of led me, that moment in time, just kind of led me into understanding a little bit more about as we age, what happens. And then another aha moment happened for me. My mother had a kidney transplant. She had been diagnosed several years before with type 2 diabetes and did not manage it. And really, in hindsight, I would like to blame the doctors because they just gave her, here you need to do this, but they didn't teach her how to do it.
Yeah, just a Band-Aid.
Yeah. And, here's the medicine, here's a brochure. And, like it was that a plate and, this is what we want you to eat. Yeah. And, she didn't get it and she didn't try to get it. She didn't seek out help. And so as a result of that, a few years later, she had to have a kidney transplant. And when she came home from the hospital, I was staying with her to help get her back on her feet. And I was just shocked. She had no idea how to read a label. She didn't know how to start an exercise program, even to go like in an aqua exercise class at the local, community center. She was clueless. My mom was an intelligent woman.
Yes, she was.
And she was very well connected in her community, but she didn't know how to begin. So it was a comical moment because at dinner when I was teaching she and her husband how to look at their plate, they both said, you should do this for a job. You would be so busy. And I said, oh, I already have a job. Forget it. And it's been probably about 10 years later. And, it's all led me to this point.
Right. Did you say that you went through their pantry?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, we had, every flavor of Jell-O and cake mix. And yeah, I'm sure that was a rough day for her when she watched me throw everything away. But, I don't feel like I believe in moderation and, but it was very clear, she thought I was crazy because I was going to take everything away from her. Mm-hmm. But, through education and just experiences, we went shopping together. So I could say, this is what you need to look in this part of the grocery store, not that part.
Right.
And really, like I said, after that, I thought, wow, maybe I do have something that I could offer people who really have no idea where to start. Mm-hmm. So just like you, I ended up getting my health coach certification. Another funny moment that we discovered we were doing that.
I know.
And we didn't even know we were doing it together.
And we were doing that at the same time.
Yeah, that was crazy. So yeah, that's where it started and kind of ended a few years ago. And then in the last couple of years, I've really been in an exploration mode is how I describe it, on a more spiritual journey. Mm-hmm. And so I've gone through Reiki training and Shamballa and some intuitive workshop trainings, because I really do feel like that's where I'm supposed to be right now and bringing all of this together.
Wow. So I want to hear more about your Reiki and Shamballa, because I just think it's such a beautiful connection between the two. And I'll just, as personal experience, when you helped me through that long distance, I mean, we weren't even in the same room. I could feel it. I could honestly feel it. So I really want you to share what you do and the impact it can have on people's lives.
So both of them, well, actually, Shamballa is a form of Reiki. Some people even call it Shamballa Reiki. But both of those modalities are a healing energy work, and they can be hands-on or even, distance like we did when we were working together. Mm-hmm. And really it's a very calming, and if you can tune into feeling your energy moving, some people can't, and that doesn't mean that it's not working, but it's just a really relaxing time too, to just let your body do what your body does. And you're fully clothed if you're, on a table or in a hands-on session. Some people will do hands-on and some do hands-off, but just kind of hands hovering over different body parts.
When we were doing it remotely, where were your hands?
Well, I kind of visualized you. I know some people will actually put like a doll or even a stuffed animal in front of them. So they have kind of a visual of, okay, I'm at the head, I'm at the feet. But I'm able to just visualize. So I just had a visual of you sitting in a chair, and we just started at your head, and then we went down to your shoulders, and, and there was, the odd part is we're not even speaking, which is hard for us.
Yeah, really.
But it's the wonderful thing about it, I think why I'm drawn to it, is that not only is the person receiving Reiki or Shamballa getting the benefit, but also the person giving it gets a benefit.
Oh, what do you get?
I feel very energized afterwards.
Oh, wow.
And, it's also very meditative, because after a while, like, of course, our monkey brain will do the best it can to interrupt us at all times when we're meditating. But it forces me anyway to say, okay, this is where I am, and be present and more mindful. Wow. And that's what I love about it.
That is so cool. I mean, I know, and it just blows me away really when I stop to think about it, because we're just doing it over the phone, but I could feel the energy. I remember feeling it so much, like in my tummy moving around and like in my heart. I just remember that so clearly. It was, yeah. It was pretty amazing.
I think one of the beautiful things about it is you don't even have to be on the phone. Like, I think I asked you the other night, is it okay if I send you some Shamballa? Because, you were going through a little rough patch earlier in the week. And, it doesn't have to be like we have a set phone call. There's still benefit. You may not feel it, but it's still, the universe is just making sure that you're getting what you need.
Wow.
So it's really kind of beautiful.
It is beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. So one of the things I've been struggling with the last month or so is I've had a really bad bout of bursitis, which is, I'm told, is not just for old people like me,
come on.
But it's
you're not old.
I joked with my acupuncturist because I said, oh my gosh, how did I get this? And he said, well, elite athletes get it all the time.
There you go.
So I've been going with that.
Bike riding, Michele.
Well, not really an elite athlete, but this is the longest time I've ever been off of my bike. So it's been about 6 weeks. So I've been religious about Shamballa on myself. Every night when I go to bed, I'm just, and it's not even the hands-on part. It's just saying, to myself that I'm sending healing energy to my body. And it's just been a wonderful way to fall asleep at night.
Oh, wow.
So I would recommend that for anybody.
Well, that's neat. Gosh. So how does Ed feel about all this? Like, you're transitioning from your lifelong career? Yeah.
Well,
because it's hard with spouses, right? I mean,
and he loves that I've been taking all of these courses over the last few years, and really diving in deep. But I'd say at arm's length, like, oh, okay, you're going to that. Okay, great. See you later. He doesn't ever, really ask too many questions, but he, this has always been part of our life together, as I've been on the exploration of something. And I joke now because it used to be crafts, when my children were babies, and he'd be like, oh, why don't we just take that right to the garage? Because that's where it's going to end up. So I'm cautious about giving him too much information until I'm really,
right,
ready. And so right now I'm sort of at the crossroads of, I'm close to retirement in my career, and I've just been loving adding this as sort of my side hustle and growing this opportunity in the next, 6 to 12 months, I guess. But it's just really fun.
That's awesome. I mean, I look at like my own journey too, and okay, so yes, we're the same age, but I feel like I'm 40.
Yeah.
And I have a whole world of opportunity in front of me, and I'm not going to just sit back and let life pass me by. I'm just not. Yeah.
Well, and don't you feel like we're not unusual? There's a whole bunch of people out there like us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know I'm so energized and so grateful actually to be this age. because, I'm not worrying about raising my children anymore. They've launched and they're off, and, we of course want to see them as often as we can, but the day to day just gives us time to be, who we want to be.
Exactly.
It's an exciting time.
Definitely. So let me ask you just real quickly, if you were to think about some key lessons you've learned along the way, like in your healing journey, that you could share with other women that might maybe newly diagnosed with a chronic illness or could be thyroid disorder, or even just trying to find their own spiritual path.
Well, I would say that the most important thing I learned in this, and I think I knew it right away, but it just took me a while to actually verbalize it, was to really listen to my voice. Like I knew something was wrong. And even though, there were just so many times I felt like, I doubted that, but really at the end of the journey, or, that getting the diagnosis that I wasn't crazy was like, yeah, I know my body, and I knew this wasn't normal.
Right.
And I mean, I keep thinking of that sort of visualization of, you get a tap on the shoulder and then you get a tap on the head. And if you don't pay attention, you get the frying pan to the side of the head. And, I think of like, thank goodness, if that was what I had to learn from it, that I learned it before something else had been much more of a consequence. Because, you hear those stories too, like I have a ton of heart disease in my family. And so I've always been very conscientious about that. But, what about all the other stuff I may not know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I feel like that was really my biggest lesson was, okay, if something is gnawing at me, I'm not going to ignore it, because there's probably something true to it. And what I would say for other people, if you listen to your intuition, it's usually right. And sometimes we have to clear the clutter to be able to listen. But I think there's such a great push now. And I mean, you can't open a magazine or an email without there being something about mindfulness. And I have loved learning all these mindfulness techniques in just recent months that, are like, okay, this is really helpful to say, leave my phone downstairs and when I come upstairs, or, mindful eating, be more aware. It's a practice though.
It's definitely a practice.
And I mean, it's not 100%.
And the thing that I found too is like, there's so much unbelievably and powerful information today, but where was it 20 years ago when I really needed it, when I could have made changes then? And
so true.
But luckily, I can make the changes now. And that's one of the purposes really of this podcast, is to help other women that maybe aren't just aware of some of the other opportunities out there to advocate for themselves and open new opportunities and doors.
Oh, yeah.
Well, journey.
It's funny that you said that, because this morning I was thinking about our getting together today, and I thought, why didn't I could have looked this up on the internet, like, here are my symptoms, doctor, Google, what's wrong with me? But I realized that we didn't have that available.
No.
I mean, that is really kind of scary to think that much. It wasn't that long ago, but it was that long ago.
I know. It's a whole lifetime ago when you think about it. So,
that's awesome now that people do have that resource, and that it's acceptable to question your doctor. Like, I love that you've talked about this and in your writings and your podcast, that it's okay to be your own advocate.
Absolutely. Because if you're not going to be your own advocate, who is? Exactly.
And if your doctor doesn't listen, find another one. Yep. There's a lot of good doctors out there. And I think, the resources of just asking friends, don't be ashamed that you're having whatever symptom it is, talk to people about it, and somehow you'll get pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I love this, again, this time of our lives, because I think women are coming together in a different way than they did, when we were in our 40s. I think, we cherish our friendships in a different way than we did then.
Yeah. One of the things, truthfully, I mean, because I've known you since ninth grade, and you've always had a network of women around you, whether that was girlfriends in college or when you had babies. I mean, you've always had a group of women around you, and there's so many women out there that don't have that network or that connection. The women have been more competition or, gosh, for lack of a better word, just like a rub, like a negative, where you've always been able to embrace that piece of friendship and love and camaraderie. It's always been me looking from afar, just thinking, God, there's Michele going off to Mexico with her book group, or look, Michelle's going to the book thingy with all of her Stevens College friends.
I do feel very fortunate, and it's sort of like my exercise routine of things that it's just always been that way. But when I look back, I think, you're drawn to people that are connectors, I guess. Mm-hmm. And in some circles, I was drawn to that connector. Like when I first moved to Tucson, I met somebody who was that person. And that's how I met so many of my friends. But there's been so many other times where it's like, wow, I'm really interested in, well, let's say a book club, because I needed a social outlet. Mm-hmm. I wanted to have a reason to go out at night that didn't mean going to a bar. And so, women in my neighborhood started a book club, and, there's been periods of time where it really gelled and other times where it was like, it's time to let this go. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think I get a lot of, what do they call that? I think I'm an introverted extrovert, mm-hmm. Because I definitely need my time, my downtime and time alone, but I'm energized by other women, mm-hmm. Other people around me. So I think I seek those situations out.
Yeah. It's always
But I love building that too. Mm-hmm. Somebody pointed out the other day that, they started bike riding because I introduced them to bike riding. Now they're like, way faster and much more frequent bike rider than I am. But, it was just that introduction to it, mm-hmm. Like, hey, we live in a beautiful climate. Let's go out for a bike ride. Mm-hmm. So I think we all have it. We just, may sometimes lack confidence to just invite someone to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as we get older, we were so connected to our kids' parents and had like a whole network that really, when you stop to think about it, would I really have been friends with her if it wasn't the fact that you were my kids' friend's mm-hmm. mother kind of thing? And then as you get older, you lose those friendships, your friendships change, and it gets harder to really kind of reconnect because what brought you together in the first place, your life has changed.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think I've been had a session with a intuitive psychic who just told me that recently, that, it's okay to let go of friendships. Mm-hmm. Like, it sounds cliche, but people do come in and out of your life at a time that you need that, whatever it is. And some friendships last forever, like ours, mm-hmm. even though we haven't always, talk to each other frequently because life got in the way, mm-hmm. we can still get together and pick up right where we left off.
Exactly.
But it isn't always like that. And it's okay to say, I don't really have to keep that going if it isn't working anymore.
Yeah. And sometimes some friendships can get really toxic and you don't mm-hmm. even recognize it because you're so enmeshed in it. And being able to take that moment to step outside of yourself and go, oh, wait a minute, I need to regroup here and
don't hang mm-hmm. on to that. Mm-hmm. I think, I agree with you there. The other piece, just going back at this point in our life, is to sort of say, gosh, I don't really want to spend time with people that don't nourish me. Life and times are precious. And there's times that you just would rather be home watching Netflix than mm-hmm. be in a social situation where you're not really comfortable or mm-hmm. feel like it's benefiting you. And that's okay at this point in our life.
Yeah, it's okay at any point in anybody's life.
Yeah, it is. I don't think I had that confidence, when I was younger. I was like, oh, can't say no.
I know.
But I for sure do now, and that's okay.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, well, I always end my podcast with this one question, Michele.
I know what it is because I listen to your podcast.
Oh, good. So maybe you'll have an answer already prepared. Who knows? But can you just, if you were to go back in time, and it's so funny because I can go back in time and think of who you were. So this is going to be fun for me to hear your answer. But if you could go back in time and tell your younger self just any little bit of advice, what would that advice be?
Well, first and foremost would be listen to that voice inside. Mm-hmm. You know, I think so many times in my life, I've overridden it. But when I look back after whatever, situation, if I have listened to my voice inside, I always had the answer. And so I would say that would be my number one. And to practice finding that voice. So whether it's meditation or mindfulness, I think being younger, I just was in motion all the time. And so that voice had to get really loud for me to hear it. And I think it's a beautiful thing. So if I could have told myself that at 20, it would have been a little easier journey.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Gosh.
Yeah, I wouldn't change anything, but it would have, certainly been easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful advice.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, we've been on an amazing journey together for so many things that even though we haven't lived in the same city since high school or college.
Don't forget about college.
Yeah, I forgot. We had that 1 year.
Yeah.
It's just really, it just brings a smile to my face to think, how wonderful and how close we really are, even though we haven't, always had that communication happening as frequently as other times.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending this half hour with me. I've really, really, really appreciate so much of you.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been the highlight of my week and maybe the whole month. I don't know.
Maybe, you never know.
Yeah.
It's only halfway over.
It's been great. And I look forward to your next podcast.
Going to be this one.
Oh, well, that's exciting then. Okay. All right. Well, you take care of yourself and we'll be talking again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Michele.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, thank you so much for joining me today. This episode is brought to you by my book, The Graceful Advocate, Taking Control of Your Life After a Diagnosis of Thyroid Disease. You can find it currently on Amazon. I love it because my friends call it a purse book. They keep it with them when they go to the pharmacy, grocery store, or even to the doctor's office. It's a great little guide to keep you on track and informed. I can't wait for next week when I get to see you back on the pod. Thank you for listening. I really do appreciate you so much. If you ever need someone to chat with about your healing journey, don't ever hesitate to reach out to me through my website at maureenlake.com.